It's the Doscinco Project.
Money pouring in, clientele growing down.
With your host, Doscinco.
Let's go!
What up, everybody? You are now tuned into the Doscinco Project, where we talk about business, entertainment, motivation, and mindset. I have a very special guest with us in the building today. She is the creator and owner of one of the largest streetwear brands coming out of Philadelphia, Bellargo Piarge. Bellargo was launched in 2003. Beginning with a one simple t-shirt logo where she was selling this right out of the trunk of her vehicle. She opened her first boutique in 2012 and took Bellargo from a t-shirt line to a mega brand and established business. After 5 retail locations, major distribution, and a strong online presence, she has generated millions of dollars of sales and has become a recognized brand in the streetwear industry. Many influencers that have wore her clothing, Meek Mill, Yo Gotti, 50 Cent, Karen Civil, Nicki Minaj, so on and so forth. She's also had product placement in major films, indie films, reality shows, and music videos. In 2015, Bellargo was also named one of the 400 streetwear brands that was part of the Virgil Abloh's Master Digital Program, which was a life-changing experience for her brand. Everybody, please welcome Tiffany Williams. How are you today?
Thank you for such a warm welcome. Thank
Absolutely.
you for having me.
Yeah, let me tell you, one thing I do remember is Gilly the Kid, or they call him Gilly the King now, right? Fresh Bellargo top with the denim, but
Yes.
homie, it's not the clothes, it's the dude that's up in them.
Yes,
You
yes,
hear me?
yes.
So we always saw, especially me walking around the neighborhood, I always saw people wearing your clothing, But let's take it back to 2003.
Okay.
Where were you mindset-wise? How did this brand come into fruition?
Oh, wow. Okay. So you guys want the polished answer or the real answer?
Give it to me, real deal, Holyfield.
So speaking of Gilly the Kid, Gilly is a great close friend of mine. At the time, 2003, my then boyfriend was Spado from Major Figures.
Oh, nice.
And he had just been incarcerated and sentenced to a very, about 10 years. And honestly, Bellargo was something I just did as a hobby project to just stay sane, keep my mind off of that, and to kind of keep busy. I always loved fashion,
right,
but I never was trying to start a business or a brand. It was, again, just really something I was doing to kind of have something to pass the time. And initially, fun story, when I started, my then partner by the name of Salim, we met at the backstage of, not even the backstage, the radio stations used to do these events called Behind the Beats.
Okay.
I believe at that point it was probably 103.9 has been so many things, I don't think they were still 103.9 back then. But they had a Behind the Beats segment with Lil' Kim for one of her albums. And my partner, we're both from Philly, but we never knew each other. We were 2 out of 10 people that she picked to come backstage and meet her.
Oh, wow.
And that's how him and I ended up meeting. So at that time, I was honestly trying to open a shoe boutique.
Okay.
I loved his personality. I thought he had great energy. I thought he would be a dope person to work in the boutique, so we exchanged numbers.
Okay.
The next day, we talked on the phone literally for 6 hours straight.
Wow.
Everything from music, fashion, and at the end of that conversation, it wasn't Bellargo, but a brand was born.
Okay.
He has a lot of friends that were already in the fashion industry, and a very prominent person here in Philadelphia, Anthony Henderson. He's worked for Daily News. He's a stylist. He's done, several things, but he was doing a fashion show, and he gave us the opportunity, and this is literally a week into this idea, a week of me and Salim even knowing each other. And he was like, hey, you guys want to do a fashion show? And I'm a big believer of, even if you're not prepared, I don't like to turn opportunities down because you never know.
Just show up.
Yeah, just show up the best way you can. Because you never know if you'll get the opportunity again and what it may lead to. So we accepted the challenge. A friend of Salim's knew how to sew. I will be the first to admit the designs were horrible for this first fashion show. And when we first started, we were doing it was nothing like what Bellargo is today. We were doing ready to wear women's clothing. So we were doing gowns, coats, a little bit of everything. And it became what it became today. Again, shout out to Gilly. We had started getting a traction of doing local fashion shows, and we were always known for having like really, really beautiful models, and it was more kind of like I want to say a community was bigger than the actual brand at that time.
Gotcha.
But a producer had asked us to do their fashion show, but they knew I had a relationship with Gilly.
Okay.
They wanted Gil in the show, so they figured to get him, they could come
through
through me.
Right.
So if I could get him for my set, if they put us in the show and I can get him for my set, it's 2 for 1.
Right.
But at the time we didn't do we were only doing women's clothing.
Okay.
So I'm like, I ask him, but we don't do men's clothing. And my partner was like, well, let's just do something quick for Gil. Let's do like a t-shirt. That's literally how Bellargo Boy was born.
Wow.
Because we were only trying to do that design to have something for Gilly to wear to walk into this segment. And when that happened, and he wore the shirt, the response was just crazy. And that was the first item that I saw. And by this time, we're about 1.5 years in. That was the first item I saw that could be monetized, that I really was like, okay, we might be on to something. So I wanted my partner, my then partner, he is like super into fashion, really, really creative. He didn't want to do just t-shirts, but I am business, and I saw that was a way like we could start making some money. So we went into that direction. I think like the next week we got probably 12 of those shirts made, and initially still we were not selling them. Back at that time, what I was able to do inadvertently was influencer marketing, but I just didn't know back then that's what it would become.
Called.
Exactly.
Right.
So I knew they used to have something called Nightlife Link in Philly.
Okay.
Because again, this is pre-social media, guys. Probably MySpace was around, but Facebook, Instagram, none of that stuff was out back then. But Nightlife Link was a group of photographers that would show up to all the, parties and any events that was going on in the city and take pictures, and they would upload them. Like if it was a party on the weekend, by Monday, everyone would go to the site to see if you made it to Nightlife Link. Like that was a thing.
That's crazy.
So my goal was I wanted to get shirts on as many guys as I can to get them on Nightlife Link. So whoever the popular guys was, I'm pulling up on your corner, pulling up on your block. I'm popping my trunk. I need you to do me a favor. It's a party this weekend. I need you to wear this shirt.
Wow.
And in the beginning, it was reluctant. A lot of people were reluctant because independent brands was not a thing in 2003.
That's true.
Prior to me, it was Mesquite. And then when I first started, it was probably maybe 2 to 3 other brands.
From Philly, though,
From
right?
Philly,
Gotcha.
exactly. So this whole phenomenon of wearing like, your homegirl's brand wasn't really a big thing. So it took some finessing and convincing for me to do. But after a while, the same people I was begging, like, can you do me a favor, was calling me like, I need to buy 3 shirts from you. Where you at? Where you at? And it just became a thing.
That's crazy. So explain, okay, so you and your partner, you guys created this overall brand, and you started using, influencers from within the city.
Yes.
But how, and again, this is also during a time where Google wasn't even really around. So how were you doing your research as far as the type of blank shirts that you needed, who to go to as far as printing, and that whole process in between?
So, again, shout out to Mesquite. A lot of the founders from Mesquite, because there's a lot of them that's our members, but a few of them actually became mentors to us when I first started. So when we first did the first t-shirt, a friend of mine used to like hand paint for them, and he was like, my homie is who prints their designs, I'll make the introduction. So he introduced me to the screen printer. To this day, this is still
Till this day.
Still my same screen printer. I never left him.
Wow.
He made the introduction to him. The screen printer, because at that point he had been, printing for them. He was also doing tour merch for Lil Wayne. He's been in the game for a long time. He was able to point me in the direction of, here's where you order your blanks from. And then, as it went on, I invested the time and started being just more knowledgeable of, I wasn't afraid to ask questions. That's the thing that I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs in this era, everyone wants to. Social media is a gift and a curse, because I feel like sometimes it gives the misconception, of instant gratification, or like you just blow up overnight. So a lot of new entrepreneurs, I find, are afraid to feel novice, so they don't like to ask questions.
Gotcha.
But you don't ask the question, you're not going to get the answer. So I never was afraid to ask. Like if I needed help and I didn't know something, no ego involved. I wasn't afraid to ask questions and ask people. And I was just lucky to get some people that were, able to guide me in the right direction. But I also felt that people recognized the hunger and knew I was willing to, I didn't just want to sit around and have things handed to me. They knew I was willing to put the work in.
Gotcha. So from selling those shirts, how did you start to evolve the brand?
So initially, I always tell people that I feel like for me, my journey went through 3 phases: hobby, hustle, and then it became a business.
Okay.
So out the trunk of the car, Tiffany was definitely a hustle. Bought 2 dozen shirts, gave the first dozen away, kept the second dozen to the side to sell. Once I was able to convince people that this is something you needed to buy, every time I sold shirts, I would just keep flipping. But it wasn't until I opened my store that I think it became a business, because now in a hustle phase again, I'm selling sometimes in a day, I might sell 100, 150 shirts after work. And I'm from every part of the city, but too, I'm still young. It's summertime. My friends might call me. I don't have a business bank account, so I'm, hand in hand with cash. I might, stop a day. Let's say a day I might stop early, 9 o'clock, then go somewhere with my friends. Then the money that I made from the shirts, I'm spending outside. I have no accounting method. All I know is I'm buying shirts, selling them, buying shirts,
You
selling.
just know you're making money.
I just know I'm making money. And I'm really not even tracking what I'm making. So when it was time, it became a point where the demand for the shirts it was more than I could keep up with. My partner didn't drive, so I was the only driver. So that means if you needed a shirt, I'm the only deliverer. Wow. If I'm at work from 9 to 5 and it's a summer day and it's guys, nobody wants to hear, I gotta meet you at 5:30.
Right.
About 5:30 and found something else to wear.
Yeah.
So it really became a point where it was like, okay, you're going to either go full force with this, or you're going to have to figure something out. And I remember the job I had at the time, I had started coming in late. My phone's ringing. My cubicle is right across from my boss's office. I'm stepping away from the desk. Yeah, I'm texting under the desk, and they put me on probation. They gave me a final warning. You're late again. The phone calls is excessive. You'll be fired.
Okay.
That was on a Friday. I went home and thought about it. My mom is usually the person I run things past, and I was like, I feel like I want to quit. And she was like, my mom I'm the first entrepreneur out of my family. My mom worked her same job from high school to retirement, out of high school to retirement. Wow. So entrepreneurship, this was another one of my things that she probably thought was just something I was doing, because I went to, prior to Bellargo, I went to real estate school.
Okay.
I went to cosmetology school. I went to college. And none of those things were for me. So for her, this was just okay, this is the next thing she's trying.
Right. But the good thing is you were trying to figure it out.
I was
right?
definitely aggressively trying to figure out what it was that I want to do. And this is what stuck.
And then you found out your passion.
I found out my passion.
And you were at your job, and that's all you were thinking about was your passion.
Was my passion, yep.
And then you finally realized that, okay, I'm done with this.
I'm done with
phase.
that. Yep. So I had... on Monday, I gave them my notice. I actually was able to work it out where I was able to get unemployment. So that gave me a little cushion to figure out what was the next steps. And I felt like at this time we were ready to really open a boutique. My partner was completely against it. He felt like it was unnecessary overhead. If it's not broke, don't fix it. But I knew that the business could not grow with just me delivering shirts out of the trunk of my car. I would stunt our growth eventually.
Now, before you opened up the boutique, was online sales a big thing at this time? Okay.
We did have a website, but we weren't actively running. We had a website for the sake of saying we had a website.
More for presence.
More for presence,
okay.
Yeah. It definitely was still... in person, and majority of all the cash we were generating was from whoever I was delivering shirts to.
Wow.
So, 2012, time to open up a boutique, and this is a part of the reason that made me want to get into the consultant coaching space. Found a spot, and the first thing they asked, okay, is this going under your business? I need 2 years of tax returns, and I'm like, huh?
Oh, wow.
I had never filed taxes. We were incorporated from 2003, but we never filed taxes. Again, we didn't even have a business bank account. My credit is to shreds. So was my partner. So I had to really convince my mom, I really need you to believe in my dream. And she co-signed for our first location.
Shout out to mom.
Shout out to mom.
Shout
She
out to
co-signed for
mom.
my first location, and although we were making money, I wasn't saving any money. She also gave us a loan of $10,000 to open my first location.
Where was the first location located?
First location was North and Liberties, and we were lucky to get North and Liberties right when it started. So we were at
because it just started building. It wasn't really that.
It wasn't
spot
that.
yet.
Yep,
Okay.
it was right off of 2nd and Girard, but we were on 2nd Street. Was our very first location.
Okay.
So. Wow. Beautiful location. My mom was leery, but knock on wood, our first day that we opened, I made enough in that day to pay her loan back.
That day.
On my grand opening day.
We gotta give her a round of applause, man. That's huge.
Yes.
So, okay, so you opened up the boutique. How did you build the buzz behind it to make all those sales? So the buzz was there.
The buzz was there. People were just waiting at that point because here's the dynamic of two, and I don't know if this is a Philly thing or just a thing. We had the brand had become popular and it became bigger than me and my partner. But for whatever reason, you had certain people that just didn't want to purchase it from me.
Yeah.
They wanted to purchase directly from my partner. You had some people that didn't want to deal with him. What the store I felt like was able to do is take me and him out the mix. Now, if you just like the brand, you can come to the store and it's not about supporting, of course you're still technically supporting us, but it's not about, you have to buy it from me directly or buy it from him directly. So the buzz had already been there by when we opened the store. People were already wearing the brand. The brand was already known around the city.
I saw a lot of people wearing it.
Yeah, this was just a lot of people too. I think what the store was able to do, because a lot of things I would get a lot of people saying, I seen it on everybody. I don't know who's behind it. A lot of people just didn't know, even when I was out the trunk. If you didn't know me personally or my partner personally, they didn't know where to get it.
Gotcha.
They just kept seeing these shirts, and they didn't know who was behind it. So once the store opened, that actually grew us, because now it wasn't just people that either I had a relationship with or he had a relationship. Now it just was.
They could just see it.
They could just see it.
So this is, again, 2012, social media has already hit the scene, right?
Yes.
But it's not like today where you're on Instagram and you're like, okay, I have a location, go here, yada, yada, yada. How were you, I know that the brand was a buzz, but how did you spread that, how did you promote the overall location? Were you going to your major buyers and just letting them know, hey, I have a location right here?
Yeah, so back then, most of the people I was dealing with, definitely we were connected through phone. Everyone had my phone number.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
when we opened, I did a mass, text. We did utilize social media though. On Facebook, we had a grand opening. We did flyers. We posted about the grand opening. People shared and reshared it. So I want to say more so it was just organic. Week after week, it just started becoming bigger and bigger. And we were always known in any of our boutiques. The brand is deeply rooted in hip hop. So we were always known for giving really, outside of just you coming to shop, we would give really cool events.
Nice.
In-store events. If it's a local artist, he might do kind of a cipher or a meet and greet at the store. We were always able to marry the hip hop world with the brand.
I love it.
That's why I felt like it was always so easy for us to get influencers, celebrity influencers. We never really tried. Most of my product placement, they knew about the brand. So if they were in the city, they would just pop up and pull up to the store.
Wow.
Because it just was an organic connection.
Wow. So you so that community continued to sustain your brand, basically.
Yes.
So to keep up with the demand, obviously you have your relationship with your printer. Was he turning your product over within a few days just to keep up with the demand in your store? How was that?
Yes. Yes and no. Some days, yes. Some weeks, yes. And then there was some bad weeks where it's bro, you're killing us. He because he still had other customers and we were not his only client. So there was some times where the demand, we found ourselves in situations where the demand was there and then we don't have product. Wow. So it just helped me. The store really forced me to really get a system and to plan and to just get better at how I approach this from the business side. Okay.
Now, obviously, we know with streetwear brands, there's a certain, lifespan to a lot of these brands. I mean, you hear the Fat Farms, you hear, all these brands, right? how were you able to keep that name still relevant? Once Bellargo Boy becomes a hot thing, then all of a sudden it can potentially die down like any other brand. How were you able to keep that going and keep it relevant?
Because I think the one thing that people miss the one thing I always loved about streetwear is just deeply rooted in culture and community. So I always, even in my personal life, outside of the brand, I'm just big on relationships and understanding how to cultivate relationships and cultivate connections. So I was always tapped in, with our community. Definitely over the years, the brand has had peaks. It has had, lows. It has peaks again. But I consistently, like my customers today, I still have some of my same customers that I remember bought my first shirt from me out of the trunk, who still currently today is still a customer.
It's crazy.
So I was just great at understanding how my customer evolved and how to evolve the brand with the customer.
Gotcha. That's
so
awesome.
for me, it was more about quality than quantity, because I would rather have 10 solid customers than 100 random customers that just make one-off purchases. My 10 solid customers I know is going to come, and these are just arbitrary numbers, not 10 literally, but those are my customers that I know no matter what I drop, they coming.
They're your ambassadors.
Exactly.
They're constantly spreading your news or spreading word about your brand.
Yes.
So explain the process of getting 50 Cent, Nicki Minaj to wear your product, and then next thing you know, it transitions into motion pictures.
So 50 Cent is funny. That's a funny story, because to this day, I don't know how 50 Cent got. He has actually a few shirts.
Well, how did you find out he had it on?
One shirt, somebody tagged me, and it was a picture of him and Oscar De La Hoya, and he had a leather jacket on. He had the T-shirt under it, our metallic gold T-shirt. And he had his jacket halfway zipped. Of course, I know my design, so you could see it good enough. And I had no clue, because I've been trying, still to this day, I'm trying to find out how 50 Cent had the shirt on, because I would like to get him some more stuff. And then another photo of him went viral when it was the whole scandal about Gucci with the blackface. 50 Cent was went viral on Instagram burning his Gucci shirt, but he was in our Bellargo shirt.
He was in Bellargo. Nice.
So everyone kept adding me, and I woke up to all these ads. I'm like, why is all these people tagging me? And then I looked at the video, and it's 50 Cent again. So till this day, I don't know whether, it was somebody from Philly that gifted him a shirt. I have no clue how he ended up in the shirt.
You'd be surprised.
You really would.
Be surprised.
Nicki, of course, at one point in time, she was dating Meek. Meek has always been a great supporter of the brand, a friend. Meek's sister, Nashima, had called me one day and was like, Nicki's here. We're going to bring her past the store. Can we bring her after hours, like after the store is closed? Yeah. And I'm like, sure. And actually, no, that wasn't how she first got into the shirt. They were here together for Made in America, and Nicki and Meek came. He brought her to the store. Oh, okay. He picked out some stuff for her, and she ended up putting on the shirt that night, like a Made in America weekend, with him. That's when we first got her in. But then another time they brought her, past the store. I got to meet her, very, very sweetheart. And she took some stuff, and lo and behold, again, I wake up one morning, someone's tagging me in a whole bunch of photos. It's her getting off the jet in one of our sweatsuits. So that's how that came. And there's several other people that, for the most part, it just was always organic connections. Either they're here in the city, they heard about the store. Like, that was the other thing that the store was great for us. Because anytime celebrities were here, however they knew about the store, they knew, and they would come through. And that was the easiest way that I could get them in product.
So let's talk about, so obviously you really made it popular in Philly.
Yes.
Did you expand outside of that?
Yes.
Nationwide?
Yes. We, we sell online country to country. But outside of Philly, we definitely still have a very strong presence in New York, Atlanta, the DMV area, LA, Carolinas, Miami, Chicago. So, and I think a lot of that too would definitely be from some of the, celebrity placements. And even with celebrities, there's times I have been out and been introduced to somebody, and they'll be like, oh, she owns the such and such. And they'll be like, oh yeah, I heard about the brand. I seen so-and-so. And even if if anything at all, even if it doesn't do sales,
Yep.
what I always explain to people is just be conscious of when you do influencer placements. Some of them don't lead to sales, but some of them definitely lead to brand awareness.
Absolutely.
So just being able to be in rooms and get introduced, and someone's like, yeah, I know what their brand is. I seen it on Meek, or I seen it on, whoever. That's been amazing.
Excellent. Talk about you being selected as one of the 400 streetwear brands for Virgil Abloh's Master Digital Platform Program.
Oh wow, that was first I had got an email. This was about 2014-15. I got an email saying we were selected, and honestly, I almost didn't reply because I thought it was like a scam.
Right.
I'm like, how the heck does Virgil, like, because Virgil, God rest his soul, was my favorite designer. I've studied his complete journey, which I just think is amazing.
From Pyrex,
Yep, to Off-White, to where he landed at with Louis Vuitton. So at first I thought it was, someone playing. My cousin is in the industry. He at the time was working with Live Nation, and I ran it by him. He was like, no, it's really a thing of somebody else I know got selected for the program.
Well, how did you get selected though? Was there like a nomination process?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
I got a random email, and I replied back to the email. They gave us the instructions and the details of, what the program was about. It was a 4-month intensive, program, and I replied back. We had to do like a essay for your final kind of, okay, you're in, and we got selected.
Wow.
And yeah, that was for me, 2015. That was we're 12 years in the game at that point. Wow. So after that 4 months, it made me honestly completely want to start my brand from scratch, because the stuff I learned there was completely life changing. One of the things I always kind of tell people about the most part, and this is something I've went on to teach now in my streetwear course, is just understanding marketing positioning and being specific with what is your end game and what's your end goal for where you want to see your brand. So I remember in one of our assignments, Virgil had us make a list of all the stores that we want our brand to be in.
Okay.
And at the time, the stores that I'm naming is like, if anybody's familiar with streetwear, is like Dover Street Market, V-Files, stores of that sort. And he asked us what brands would you want to shelf next to? If you're in the store, who's next to you on the shelf? And I'm naming again your Supremes, your A-Life, Palace, like certified streetwear brands. So now he told us to take that list, and he was like, okay, if you're in stores, I want you to make a list of the stores that you're in. And I also want you to make a list of the brands. I want you to compare them and tell me, are they on the same spectrum?
Matching exactly what you want, right?
And no disrespect to the store. At that point in time, I had a distribution deal, and I was in 13 doors, so that's 13 different stores with this one distributor. And no disrespect, they gave me an amazing opportunity, but it was totally not aligned. Like the brands that was in that store would never be the brands that would make it to a V-File. So I, at that point, was challenged with, okay, if this is really what you see for your brand and this is really where you want to go, what's the decision you made? And I made the decision to pull myself from those stores because I knew to get my brand to where I wanted to go, I had to position it that way. Gotcha. And that's one of the biggest things that I learned personally from, Virgil and that experience. That I would say was life-changing.
That's amazing.
Yes.
So after coming out of that program, are you still connected with any of the alumni from that program as well?
Yes, we do. They every year they host different alumni meetups. COVID had shut a lot of things down because right pre-COVID they were having a big one in London because this was a worldwide program, so it wasn't just 400 from the United States. It was a global. Okay. But yeah, they for a lifetime you are featured. Like they have a website. So you're featured. Your stuff can be showcased on the site. They definitely still do meetups. They do continued different seminars and Zooms and things. So you are definitely still tapped in. And outside of streetwear, it was streetwear, it was photography, and it was one other sector. So the other cool thing about that is, if I have a brand and I need a photographer, like they kind of made a great network of people.
Nice.
So that was dope within itself.
So with all of that being said, what would you say would be one of the biggest highlights you got out of that program besides product placement and the type of stores that you wanted to be in?
Just honestly, firsthand knowledge from Virgil himself. I mean, that's priceless.
So he was actually instructing you guys?
Yes,
Wow.
he not through the whole one. So it was him, and of course it was also different industry elites. Mike Sherman, who at the time had a brand ICNY, but he is the owner of Chinatown Market, which is now just Market. Leah McSweeney, Married to the Mob. She's one of like the very few big female streetwear brands. Oh gosh, I know I'm gonna Samuel Ross, who has a brand, a Cold Wall. He was Virgil's mentee. He's from London. So it was a lot of different other industry people that he brought through the program. And since then, now I see this program duplicated so much. Parsons and Complex is doing one that's similar with like Don C, April Walker from Walker Rare. So. But just to be on the cusp of one of the first type of programs, that was just an amazing experience.
Man, that's awesome. So let's go all the way back now, right?
Okay.
Before the brand. Where did you grow up? How was your childhood? I ask a lot of my guests this because a lot of times, we want to see what the journey was. I mean, obviously we see the journey as an entrepreneur. How did you grow up?
I grew up in Uptown, Wessel Lane, part of the city.
Okay.
My childhood was great, honestly. So
I had a great childhood too.
So
no
I'm not going to get over here and be one of those people. Unfortunately, I don't have like a struggle rags, the richest story. 2-parent home. My mom and dad was married until my dad passed away 12 years ago. But my mom and dad was married until he passed away. I have an older brother. We're 10 years apart. So most of my childhood was just me because by the time he was in college, by the time I was
roaming around the house.
Yeah, by the time I'm roaming around the house. And so I was almost like an only child. And my mom and dad, I will honestly say I was a spoiled child. My mom and dad did everything they could to provide us with, the things that we wanted. So ironically, people used to tell my mom that me and my brother would probably be lazy because she spoiled us so much.
Did the complete opposite.
Complete opposite. I remember at 14, I've had a job since I was 14. The minute I could get working papers, I always wanted to work, even though I never had to. I just loved having money, and I loved having my own. At 14, I just wanted to have my own money that was mine, and it's something I made. And if I wanted to go and treat my friends, the Pizza Hut, it's my money.
That's what you're going to do.
And that's what I'm going to do, and nobody could tell me. So I have had a job since I could remember.
And then the thing is, your mom, your parents, they seem like, they were not only supportive, as you were growing up, but even when you decided to take on this entrepreneurial endeavor, which was totally against what she was doing as a traditional worker.
Absolutely. Right? Both of them were very, very supportive. I remember my dad would come with me to the printer carrying boxes. He would come help set up at my fashion shows. Like he was hands-on supportive. And financially, yes, half of the things I was able to accomplish with Bellargo in the beginning, I would not have been able to do without their financial support.
That's awesome. My parents are the same way. I came, parents were together. They still together till this day. It was one point in time. They've always been supportive. They've never downed anything that I wanted to do. And I'm kind of like you. I bounce around trying to figure out, what lane I want to be in. And there was one particular time, right, where I didn't have work for a good month. I was young during that time, so I had no money coming in. I said, you know what? I'm gonna take this last $400 and I'm gonna flip them into some sneakers and see if I can sell sneakers out there in the streets. My father was like, I'm not paying for your college, or I'm not helping you with your college education for you to be out there trying to sell sneakers, right? So he did that, but I said, I'm gonna do it anyway because I need the money. So I go out there, my little stand that I had, and my father comes just to check up on me, and he see me selling sneakers. So then he gets out the car, he see all these people coming, and he sees a big old wad of money that I just had taken out of my pocket. I said, Dad, I'm gonna go to the Chinese store real quick. You think you can hold this down? He was like, yeah, no problem. He's sitting there. He willing and dealing with everybody. Now he enjoying because he sees the vision now.
Yes.
Sometimes they just got to see
They got to see it. Exactly.
That's awesome. Explain Bellargo Consulting.
So Bellargo Consulting is it's a branding consultant agency that I started. I used to As Bellargo, over the years, as Bellargo got popular, I used to always get approached by like people starting brands like, I need help, or can you guide me in a direction? And just with having a busy schedule, it was a lot to do kind of one-on-one. Two, I'll be honest, this is a thing now on social media, but for a long time I felt not comfortable in that space. Because I don't want to be the reason if someone fails or succeed. And I knew I was successful in my right, but I didn't feel, accredited enough to feel like, how do I navigate and guide you?
Gotcha.
But I would say probably in around 2017, 2018, of someone who actually became a great friend of mine to this day, Jamility Davis. If anybody is familiar with her story, she's from New York. She had did like about 12 years in the feds, during that time she received like her doctorates, completely changed her life around. She was here, I guess in jail, they're still on social. She was on social. She had heard about my story. She was here in Philly at Tasty's restaurant, and we were introduced. And she was like, I heard a lot about you. I just wanted to come and introduce myself. She was doing like this women's empowerment tour. It was like, would you speak? And that was like my first speaking thing. And I'm like, wow, I guess, okay. Surprisingly, I'm super shy, introvert. I'm like,
you would never guess it.
You would never guess it.
Never.
Now, I'm comfortable now, but I did her speaking engagement, and from that, she was like, okay, I want to take this on tour. Do you want to come with me to Cleveland, Ohio? We want to do an event there. And I'm like, okay, sure. She's like just a real genuine person. And after that, she, because I have like a background still in corporate, I worked in corporate so long, she needed help kind of like put in a presentation deck for something she was doing.
Gotcha.
She asked me, did I know anybody? I'm like, well, what you need done? She told me. I'm like, I can do it. So I did it. It was amazing. She was like, wow. Or she was like, a friend of mine's, her personal assistant, just quit. She's trying to submit something. Can I put you guys on the phone? Maybe you can help her like you helped me. Right. I'm like, sure. So she's like, okay, hold on. I'm going to call her. Mind you, she never says the friend. She clicks over and she's like, hey, Tiffany, I have Misa Hilton on the line. Now, if anybody knows who Misa Hilton is, that is like one of the largest still to date stylists in the industry. A lot of people also know her as Justin Combs' mom, Diddy's first son. But she's responsible for the looks like Little Kim's looks, Mary J. Blige early looks, Jodeci, like the whole hip hop, the whole bad boy and like hip hop, fashion looks. She created that lane. Okay. So I'm on the other line like, Misa Hilton. Wow. So she introduces me and Misa. I do this presentation for Misa. Misa then asked me, Misa at the time has, she has a fashion academy called the Misa Hilton Fashion Academy, where she teaches, up and coming stylists. Right. She needed someone, to work for the academy. Like she needed a liaison until she found another person. That's the other thing. Even at the height of Bellargo, I have never turned down any other money.
I've noticed that. Throughout your entire journey, you've been showing up opportunity after opportunity. You do not say no.
I don't say no. So, because a lot of people's like, why would you do that? You have your own brand. And I'm like, why not? Yeah, it's something I can do. And it's time. And again, I know the importance of relationships. So I took it on. And once I got there, Misa's a fellow Capricorn like me. She's big on energy. She started, to ask me and inquire about the brand. Okay. She, then started to do her due diligence on my story. And she was like, I want to expand, the fashion academy. How would you feel about becoming an instructor and teaching streetwear? And I'm thinking, she knows, like, Misa knows, again, she could have gotten anybody. Yeah. April Walker, Don C. She knows she's tapped in with everyone. And I just was in awe, like, out of all people, you want me, like, you trust me to teach it? And she was like, absolutely. So that was kind of when I got thrusted into that space. And once I was able to swim in that space, I'm like, okay. And then Jamila was another person. Built your confidence up
as a speaker, too.
She was like, she has a non-for-profit entity, and she does kind of electives, like entrepreneurial electives in the school district, New York. Okay. She was like, I want to bring you along. I want you to teach, teach some students in high school. She brought me to her first high school. Now I'm 18 schools in.
18 schools.
So now I'm like, okay, if Misa trusts me, they trust me in the school district. I gotta know something that I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
And that's when I felt more comfortable to do the consultant. So I launched Bellargo Consulting probably, I want to say, in like 2018. And since then I have been helping. My niche, of course, is fashion, but branding is branding. Like building a brand.
That's true. You can do that anywhere.
You can do that anywhere, whether it's fashion, whatever you're doing. So branding is really my niche, and that's what I help people do. Really determine like who you are as a brand, how to communicate that brand to your audience, how to understand how to tap in and even identify who your audience is, and how to stay connected.
Man. Can you let the audience know where they can find out all of these resources that you offer? Sure.
So Bellargo Consulting, we're on Instagram, Bellargo Consulting, BELLARGO Consulting, ING, because everybody always thinks I'm saying consultant.
Right.
We have a website, bellargouniversity.com. So that's where you can pretty much see everything going on in that lane. And of course I am just Miss Bellargo on social. And I try to be as active. I'm trying to get better at being active and showing up on social, because that's the other thing that's just been hard for me to navigate.
Yeah, that's a whole full-time job in itself.
It is, and coming from an era of pre-social media, I know social media is important. I preach that to my clients, but actually still really hands-on, everyday teaching, doing things. A lot of times I just don't have time to do content, but I'm getting better. I'm getting better.
What can you say, and this is the last question, what can you say to that little girl or that little boy that's kind of, or even teenager or what have you, that's stuck, and they're like, I want to pursue my dreams, but I'm in this environment right now, or I have these people that are not supporting. What can you tell them with regards to trying to build some momentum behind anything that they have in their mind?
One, I feel like everyone, and this is something that I actually shout out to Misa that I learned from her. I feel like everybody has a reference, a point of reference of inspiration. So everyone has a space of where you feel most inspired. You need to find where that space is and just get locked into that space. Because even for me, there are times where I just feel unproductive and uninspired. Right. But sometimes, and I know it's easier said than done to kind of remove yourself from an environment, but even if it's just a mental, sometimes you physically can't remove yourself from an environment.
That's true.
Even if it's from meditation or mentally, you need to put yourself somewhere, try to do that. And I definitely am a huge advocate, especially for teenagers. Look into mentorship, but not only mentorship, internships. That's the other thing that I always, with the store, try to do is offer internships every summer for teenagers, so you could be hands-on and they can just, be in the environment of whatever it is that they want to do. Right. So definitely, because we have social media, the access is there. You just have to be, don't be afraid to hop in someone's DM. Yep. And sometimes I tell people too, a lot of times people will, get shunned away when they don't get immediate, the immediate reaction that they're looking for. If it's something I want, if I have to DM you 85 times, I'm going to until you open it and give me the answer I need you to do.
Absolutely.
So persistence and consistency can take you a long way.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be honest. I hopped up in your DM and I said, Tiffany, I would love the internet. And here we are today. And you could. I've reached out to quite a few. Some answer, some don't. It's just the nature of the beast, you know. But I thank you so much for the opportunity just to even capture this, because, like I said, I've seen the brand before. Gilly, I love Gilly as a rapper, especially growing up, hearing his music, and I had no clue you was with Spado at one time.
Yes.
He had that mixtape called Independence Day.
Yes.
Loved that mixtape.
That was a great
mixtape.
I still have that.
Loved it. I have it too. It's somewhere, but I have it, But overall, let me tell you, you are an inspiration. I wanted to have more women in my podcast. Oh. And you are definitely one of those individuals that really have, had quite a journey, but you've also built something from scratch, which I love. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much
appreciate
for having
it.
me.
And everybody, we got planes to catch. We ain't got time for the nonsense.